Hey, sweet friends. Welcome back to another great episode of Still Positive. I'm so happy that you're here because it is the 20th episode. 2020. And unlike 2020, this is going to be a great episode because I'm talking with Christina. And she came up with this awesome journal when she was on the couch living with Lyme's disease. And she was reading about how much journaling can help with a chronic illness and just to get that stuff out of your head. We know it's a lot. We have a lot of time on our hands to think. So Christina created Begin Within today, and I've been following the page for a little bit now, and it is really cool to see the transformation, but also to see people's reaction to the product and how it's helped them. I mean, I've always been interested in journaling. I have been on and off, but it's sort of just like this rambling on of different thoughts, and like, while sometimes that's helpful, I feel like it's not direct enough, and especially for all the things that I want to keep track of. So thinking back to the episode talking with James about chronic insights and how that was really specific to tracking symptoms and seeing the progression there, this is also a hand in hand with that, I would say, to help with not only tracking your symptoms with chronic insights, but then also tracking your mental state and how you're doing mentally. Like, how are you doing? Do you love yourself? How are you checking in with the other side of what chronic illness can do to people? Because it's a very natural thing to happen. I mean, your life is sort of turned upside down for an extended amount of time. So you want to check in. And Christina talks about how she came up with this idea, how she researched into finding the best prompts for the people in the chronically ill community. So I hope you enjoy this episode with Christina talking about Begin Within today.
Let's be real. People love to gloss over chronic conditions or disabilities with a fleeting comment like, just be positive, or a fleeting insult like, kale will cure you. This is a podcast for when you face a different reality, knowing that positivity isn't a magic wand that's going to cure everything, but a flashlight in the dark that we may or may not have batteries to. Living with a chronic illness or disability makes you feel different, and your difference could be noticeable to others or not, but either can sometimes make you feel invisible. I'm here to tell you that your experience is valid and shared by others in the dark. Positivity is not the missing puzzle piece that's going to solve your life's puzzle, but it can be a beautiful tool that can help you grow, and sharing those experiences can make us grow together. Thanks for showing up. I really appreciate it. So nice to meet you.
You too. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your journal, Begin Within today. How did you come up with this idea? Was it always for chronically ill people? Did you face chronic illness yourself? Like, how did you come about it?
Yeah, so when I created it, I was couchbound from Lyme disease, a plethora of other diagnoses as well, symptoms, debilitating symptoms, couchbound to the point that I depended on my mother for pretty much everything, showers included. And a friend of mine had recommended listening to an interview about Dr. Terry Walls, who had healed herself from MS, multiple sclerosis. And I watched and I was just like mind blown. I need to buy this woman's book. And I read her book and she said, before you start, you need to journal, track your symptoms. That's imperative. And, you know, I journaled on and off in the past, but the thought of it was really overwhelming to me when I was that sick.
Yeah.
And so I looked for journals that already had prompts for symptoms. But as a psychotherapist, I knew there was this mental health component because the mind and body are not separate. There's a mind-body connection. One affects the other, which affects the other, so on and so forth. And I'd done some research alongside reading Dr. Terry Walls's book about the mind-body connection and the power of gratitude and the power of self-love. So I'm like, here I am just trying to find a journal that would allow me to fill in the blanks for my symptoms, fill in the blanks for my mental health. And maybe there's a component for gratitude. Maybe there's a component for self-love, and maybe a component for visualizations, which are also extremely important. But I couldn't find anything. And I was willing, I was like on Amazon, scouring the internet, Google, what have you. And all I could find was stuff related to just tracking symptoms, just tracking your mental health, gratitude journals. That was pretty much the extent of it, because I was willing to just, add a few prompts myself. But because I couldn't find it, I just created a list of my own prompts based on my research and what has appeared to be the most effective, specifically for healing chronic illness. And I got really tired of it because I had so many prompts. And I ended up, I think I had texted a friend or called my friend, and I'm like, someone needs to create a journal that includes all of this, because I just can't keep writing these prompts every single day.
Right.
And she's like, yeah, dude, like definitely someone needs to. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. She's like,
There you go.
Okay.
Fill that void. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. That there's clearly a need. So like in a way it was a bit selfish, because I like genuinely needed it for myself, for my own healing. But then I knew how impactful and helpful it might be for many others in a similar situation. You go to a doctor, a nutritionist, a physical therapist, or like, can you please record what you're eating, how many bowel movements you're having? You go to your therapist, can you record like where you're at with your mental status, how you're feeling every day? Can you jot down what you're grateful for every day? Every person is asking you to
take note,
to document, to track. And, if you have chronic illness, you're likely seeing more than one type of practitioner, and all of them are asking you for different things. So it's like, here is just one spot for it all. Here you go. And I was really sick. So it took me a while. I was trying to elicit the help of like designers and whatnot, because this was not my realm, really.
Right.
And
what were you doing before this?
So before I got sick, I was doing humanitarian work. So I am a licensed psychotherapist, and I was with NGOs doing disaster mental health.
Wow.
And I was working with older adults and adults with disabilities in home health.
So you were already sort of in this world. I love that.
I was in the mental health realm. I'm sorry, I wasn't in the publication realm. That's like, I knew nothing. That was out of my scope. I knew nothing about it. Business, publication, no idea. So I kept sort of hitting brick walls with designers and, this and that. And finally, my friend who I had mentioned prior to this was like, I am going to help you do this, because people aren't honestly helping you or getting you from point A to point B. So she I don't know if she took classes, but she did what she needed to do to learn how to work Canva on a professional level. And she did the entire content design. We worked really closely together. If it weren't for her name's Stephanie Noetz. She's amazing. Just putting that out there. She's like a woman of many skills. If it weren't for her, I don't know how long it would have genuinely taken me to get this out into the world. But it took a little bit over a year, and it was exhausting because I was doing it, while I was on a couch. I was progressive, chronic illness is a roller coaster, good days, bad days, some in between. It's not linear, but I was progressively getting quote unquote better. So stronger every day. And frankly, the journaling, even though I didn't have a physical journal in front of me, I was still writing prompts. Like I said, it took over a year. I was just using a notebook. I could go back in my notebook on days where I was feeling totally crappy and go, oh my God, that's where I was 2 months
Yeah.
ago. Like
Mhm.
I I I saw it written that I was getting better. I needed that proof because when you're in it, as you may know, like it's so hard to think like you're getting better, you're getting stronger.
Yeah.
It, it's complicated, and I have two different covers of the journal, and one of them is a picture of a mountain. That was another thing. I couldn't find like an artist I was jiving with enough to use their artwork for the cover. And finally she goes, "You're an artist," which I am. Just why don't you use your artwork for the cover?
Yeah.
And or
Don't have to pay
and
royalties. You're all set there. Yeah.
yeah, but the mount I intentionally I really love mountains, but symbolically the mountain I have on the journal represents like the mountain we all climb with mental, I mean, like with physical, mental illness, and the strides we make, we take, and often we forget to take a look back at how far we've climbed. You know, I joke that most of us with chronic illness have climbed Everest at, by this point. Um,
Literally.
it's true, but we take a look back and we're like, oh my God, look at how much I've done, how much I've been through. Like,
And the wordage that you use in the past and like how low you might have been at certain points is
sure,
really something to look back on. I look back on journals and I was like, I was so angry. Like I was so mad at my whole situation and everything about that. But like reading that just makes me think like I'm glad I got that out so I can move past it.
exactly. I'm so happy you said that, because like anger is a very healthy and normal emotion, and using a journal to let that out is one of the healthiest things you could possibly do.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy you recognize that. It takes a
Yeah.
lot of self-awareness. So
It does. And I think that if it wasn't for me getting it out, I might have still like been harvesting it, deep down somewhere, but hopefully it's gone for a little bit at least until something else comes up.
and I say like what we don't feel, we don't heal. Like if we don't let those emotions out, they can often manifest into other things like physical pain, like chronic illness.
Mhm.
So that's a real thing.
How did you feel going through and like writing the prompts? I think that I've definitely done that a little bit, but I fell off almost within a month, probably less than that, maybe a week. So, like, how did you, especially being on the couch, how did you get the motivation to continue to write the prompts, write down how you're feeling, and like process what you're feeling at the same time?
So the prompts were like I said, I did quite a bit of research on journaling, and there are studies in how it affects our mental and physical health in positive ways. Like it actually is instrumental in physically healing us. So
Mm.
I knew that this was going to be a tool for myself, but I needed to create something that was as easy as possible to fill in the blanks, especially on days when I was experiencing like immense brain fog and fatigue, where it's like you could barely get me to like lift up a pen, let alone fill out something. But
Yeah.
the if you take a look at the prompts, like the journal prompts, they can be filled out so quickly, so swiftly without real thought. So even though like I didn't feel like I was using a ton of brain or emotional energy, um, it was still getting it out of me.
Mm.
So like what may seem like an inch to a person not experiencing chronic illness and those debilitating symptoms is like miles for us. And I could tell like there was until like till this day there isn't an evening I regret journaling, and that's because I have witnessed the positive effect it has had on me and so many others. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And how, if you, have you ever gone through a phase where you just like stopped for a little bit and then what is it that kind of gets you back on the horse?
Yeah, there's been various times where I stopped, like where I was like in the midst of moving, or like just big life changes where it's like I can't add one other thing to
Yeah.
my list.
Yeah.
Like this is not like right now, I'm not finding this to be a helpful tool at this moment in time. And we all have to make that decision for ourselves. But the moment I do find stable ground again and get into a rhythm and I'm not doing it, it's like it's honestly it's like mentally prompted, like, Christina, time to open up the journal again. Like
Yeah.
I just there's just like signs like you're not getting this out of your system, you're not getting this out of your body. And it's really me personally, it's really important that I get things out,
Mm.
whether it's verbalizing, whether it's writing it, whether it's painting it. I don't want it to stay in my body. Like, I love my body, I don't want to harbor anything toxic inside
Yeah.
of it. I want it out.
Do you find that through journaling is where you found your self-love, or was it before that that you sort of worked through all of that on your own?
So great question. When I was creating the prompts, one of the questions is, name one thing you love about your body. And that is almost everyone I've spoken to, that's like the hardest prompt to answer for themselves. And I think when I was I always thought, oh yeah, I definitely have self-love for myself. Sure, 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 sure. But when I was on that couch, I hated my body. I thought my body wanted to kill me, that it was working against me. You have autoimmune issues, so your body is attacking itself. And it's like, how can you have this like positive relationship with something you're being told is attacking you?
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of resentment and anger towards my body at that moment, like at that time. But I had read a story about a woman who was really sick and I don't know if someone had told her to do this or she just did this on her own. She would sit in front of the mirror and tell every body part what she loved about it and how much she loved that body part, even
Mm.
though she felt like her body was totally failing her and she like hated herself and had no self-esteem, so on and so forth. And the more she did that, the more she healed, the more she healed. And I think, if I can remember correctly, because I haven't read it since prior to creating the journal. She ended up like completely healing herself or going into remission. And I was like, oh my God, I need to do something like that. That needs to be a prompt. So it was a mixture of journaling, something I loved about myself every night. And what I decided to do is whatever area of my body was giving me the most grief,
Mm.
that's where I sent my love. If I had a
Oh.
migraine, I love my head. I love my brain. Like,
Yeah.
it knows exactly what it needs to do to take care of me. I am so grateful. Like, literally, like, even though that is totally the opposite of how I could feel, that's what I would target. And
Mm.
that there was that. And then I also did EMDR, and I'm EMDR trained myself, but I
What's
went through
EMDR?
EMDR, eye movement desensitization,
Oh.
retraining. Yeah. So it's a trauma informed, focused therapeutic modality specifically for PTSD. I mean, really any traumas. And it was so effective in my healing journey, which is why I decided to get trained in it myself. It's a beautiful modality. It's not the only trauma informed modality. But yeah, it's great.
So what does it do with your eye movements? Do you just like
So
focus them in a certain way?
so there's bilateral stimulation,
Mm.
which it basically there's neural retraining involved. It's creating new neural pathways with traumas, basically traumas in the past. Like, you create new associations with things that you once had negative connotations for.
Mm.
Um, So basically, as you do the work, things that once bothered you don't bother you as much anymore. Like it you're able to bring your heightened sense of it down. That's why it's desensitization.
Mm.
And um, also like negative belief patterns, we're able to like switch those around, replace them with positive beliefs.
Wow.
It's really, really beautiful, effective work.
Mm.
And it has been tremendous in healing those with chronic illness. It's totally like a piece of the puzzle, piece of the pie. Not just, and again, not just EMDR. Trauma focused in therapy is just where it's at, and what I highly recommend to anyone who has chronic illness. I recommend it to anyone in general, but
Yes.
especially those of us with chronic illness. And in that, my negative, I was going to say my negative belief pattern, which was really dark, but we got down to is like, I don't believe I should heal. Like that was like, oh my
Mm.
God, like, wow, I didn't expect that to come up.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
in that, there was like clearly, like you mentioned, like the self-love. Like how could I, if that was like my base belief for
Right.
myself? And once we were able to like work on that, clear that out, it's like, that's awesome. And now, hi, body, I love you. You are fighting for me, not against me. Let's do this. And
Yes.
it's like we became a part, we weren't like no longer separated. We became partners in
Yeah.
healing.
Joined again. I love that. I love
Thank
that so
you.
much. And I think that that's really helpful for a lot of people because you do like, I don't know, maybe you don't have to get to this point where you're like worn down so deeply that you just emotionally, you're like, I can't even feel like I love myself because, like you're saying, it's like you're constantly battling with your body and the effects of the medicine that's trying to help you that isn't really helping, but like in some ways it might be. So
Mhm.
just taking note of even just the side effects from that and taking note of, this is my body's way of trying to get to the next step, and like you're saying, just send love. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not linear. Like, we have good days and bad days. And I just noticed on my bad days, that's when I need to send myself the most love, the most care, the most compassion.
Right, because usually you want to do the opposite. You want to eat crappy
Yeah,
food. You want to like binge whatever show. You don't want to do the self-loving at that point.
no, 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 no. It's like if you're not feeling the self-loving thing, that's when you need it the most.
Mm,
That's when
yes, that's a
yeah.
great point. Is there a best time for you specifically that you carved out for journaling? Like, is in the morning, afternoon, night? What's your vibe?
For me, it's at night. It's that unwinding that it helps. And honestly, it helps me with my sleep. It's like, okay, cool, like out of my brain onto something. Now
Mm,
I can rest. I like, ideally this doesn't happen every night, but I like to journal. And in this specific journal, it honestly takes like usually around 5 minutes to fill out. If you really want to like keep going and going, which is awesome. Like I know some people actually have like a blank journal next to it because they're like, it got me started thinking about this and I just wanted to write all about it, which is beautiful. So that, it can take from 5 minutes to however long you want or need. And then from there, I like to read a book that supports my nervous system.
mm,
That's important. That's something I've also learned in healing. It's like, oh, my body's already in fight or flight mode. If you have chronic illness, your body's likely in fight or flight mode. Like, how do we calm down our nervous system so that we can rest, digest, and heal? Because your body will always prioritize fight or flight mode, meaning like running, fighting, fawning, freezing, over healing. So
mm.
if I'm able to calm myself down, journal something funny, sweet, informative in a positive way, then I really have like a pleasant sleep generally.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important too, just to like get that one extra like calm down cycle because, we're on screens like 99% of the day. And then just that breaking off point, I think sometimes it does feel like an extra to do list thing that you can't even fathom going through. You're like, I just want sleep. And sometimes it's like I do need to sort of zen out a little bit on my own and reading something that'll not necessarily be a self-help book. It could be like just a story or something that like you can engage with, like so your brain is just like going down. I love that.
Exactly. And I will say, like, when I was really not feeling well, like reading was out of the question, and that was okay. It's like whatever feels right to your body. And I know, like, obviously screens are not ideal, like especially, the blue light, using it before you go to bed. It like yeah, there's negative connotations with that for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to keep saying it's whatever supports your nervous system and brings you joy and makes you happy, because we want to avoid dis-ease.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that even too, just the decision of what do I want to do with this last hour I have before I go to bed? Like that's an exploration into yourself. Like what
Mhm.
best is fitting what I need right now? And like that's a win. If you just
Mhm.
say like going to bed, that's a win. You
That's
know?
a win. Yeah, you don't have to you know what I mean? Like you don't have to do anything. I think that the biggest healing aspect of this all is you making the decision of what feels and is right for you without anyone
Absolutely.
else telling you that.
Yes, yes, definitely. And I love so Begin Within today also gives back a little bit each individual cause for the month. And this summer you are giving back to Chronic Illness Hotline. Can you tell us a
Yes.
little bit about that?
Yes. This hotline is amazing. Right now it's only via texting, but you text them and they set you up with a compassion counselor, and they can talk to you. There are so many different hotlines out there, like a domestic violence hotline, suicide hotline, various crisis lines. But this was ingenious because how many of us with chronic illness have gotten to the point where, like, I need to talk to someone who actually understands what this is like, because my family doesn't really, my friends don't, whatever. And this is it.
That's
This is a
awesome.
great way to connect with someone who does understand and can empathize with what you are moving through with chronic illness.
Oh, I love that. So you just text them and they get back to you with a
Yes,
response.
yeah. It may not happen right away because they have to organize it. They're still sort of starting up. I want to say they've been around for like a year or two.
Mm.
And if you want to be a volunteer for them, also, I think they're always accepting volunteers. So if you're feeling good enough and that's something you have capacity for, that's awesome. But yeah, it's important for me with the journal. It's like I also wanted to create something where it's like you are taking care of yourself while you're taking care of others, because so many of us with chronic illness wish we could donate to these organizations that help the disease, the infection, the ailment that plagues us. We would love to provide them with the resources so they can keep doing what they need to do, be it research, advocacy, providing resources to others. So this is a way to do it where you're like, okay, cool, I'm taking care of myself and I'm taking care of others at the same time. And it's really fun to be able to choose that organization for the season.
Yeah, that's a great cause and a great way to include awareness for different organizations that are doing things for the chronic illness community.
Hmm. Hmm. Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you jumping on, and I loved hearing about this journal. I can't wait to get one because I definitely need one.
Let's get you on.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, you cuties. That is it for our 20th episode. Thank you so much to Christina. So happy you could jump on the call. And I am so happy to hear more about Begin Within today, the journal, and to hear about the chronic illness hotline. I really appreciate you sharing that information and giving back to the community in the awesome ways that you do. If you want to hear more about Christina and Begin Within today's journal, follow their Instagram page. And make sure to purchase one of the Begin Within Today journals if you feel like something that you are missing in your life. I think that it could be a really helpful tool for anyone going through a chronic illness or anyone that just wants to track their daily symptoms. Maybe you don't have a chronic illness yet and you just want to try to figure out what's going on with you, you know? So make sure to follow along with Christina and Begin Within today. Make sure to purchase a journal. And if you want to hear more of Still Positive, like and subscribe. Stay tuned next week for another great episode, and I can't wait to see you there. Thanks so much. Stay safe.